Well, hi, a warm welcome to all of our viewers today. And again, we are talking about unified service management today with a great panel of experts. If you are interested in service management, you really don't want to miss today's discussion. The recording will be made available later, but let's see how we go today in the live session. Blanche is in the social chat today, so please let her know your name and the city from where you're joining. Remember, this is an interactive event, so please get involved in the chat. And if you have any questions for the panel, please feel free to just enter them into the chat and we'll get them over to the team live to answer on air today. So today we've got a fantastic panel, so let's jump straight in and meet them. Welcome, everybody. It's really good to have you all here. I'm just going to walk around the panel quickly, starting with Esther, just to introduce everybody. So Esther's a service management architect, and she designs anything a service provider would need when it comes to services, processes, people, tooling, and she does that within the Dutch government. She's also an expert in USM. So really good to have you on the show, Esther. Welcome.
Glad you're joining us today. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Listen and ask your questions, like Nigel said. Yeah.
Yes, please do. Don't forget. Okay, and then Jan van Bon, he's an enterprise service management architect, and his goal is to help people reduce complexity and achieve sustainable improvements with the USM method. It's a unique proposition, by the way, from a non-profit position. Jan has produced more than 100 management books with thousands of authors and reviewers, and in his latest book, Unified Service Management, an Introduction to the USM Method, Jan summarizes all those lessons learned from the past. It's great to have you back on the show, Jan.
Yeah, it's mystical words, isn't it? Great to be here, help people understand the new thinking of USM.
Fantastic. And I don't agree with the mythical words part, because we're talking about something today which is very concrete. Yeah, is helping a lot of people around the world. So great. Mikko Cornen's experienced service management advisor, coach, trainer, consultant, and he likes to take the mystique and mumbo out of service governance and management. With over 20 years experience in the trenches, he's learned that a lot of people share the same symptoms of service management gone bad. And Mikko's trying to help fix that. Mikko, welcome.
Hi guys, glad to be here. Let's have fun.
Absolutely, I agree. John Worthington has over 40 years experience in the IT industry, spanning 2 decades in sales and business development, more than 20 years in IT service management. And therefore, I think it's safe to say he brings a wealth of experience to this table. So John, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Nigel. Glad to be here.
Fantastic. Awesome to have you on. And our last panelist for today is Peter. Peter Hoekstra is a dedicated trainer, coach, and facilitator, and he specializes in enhancing team dynamics and optimizing organizational architecture. He's got experience in team building, conflict resolution, and strategic planning, and I think he really likes to help bridge the gap within organizations to help improve efficiencies.
That's right.
Welcome, Peter.
Yeah, thank you. Looking forward for today. And let's move on with the first question.
Fantastic. I agree. Let's get straight into the questions, everybody. And just as a reminder, don't forget, if you have a live question, just put it into the chat and our team will get it straight over to you now. Now, I can see there are tons and tons of people joining online. Okay. Sean, just thanks for, before we get into the first question, Sean, he's from MindMagine over in Malaysia. We've got Fernando. Well, we've got so many people, joining from all over the world here. Got some people from Finland, from India. We've got Pavel from Poland, Roman from Stockholm. Wow, there's people from everywhere, all over the world. We'll get to you guys in a little couple of minutes. But I think for the first part, let's kick off and do our first question. And our first question today is, where does the concept of service actually come from? Now, John, I'm going to start with you if you don't mind. So
all right,
kick us off with this.
Well, when you say the word service to a guy like me, I think I'm getting my car fixed, right? Service has traditionally been an after the sale concept. You buy a car, you have a maintenance contract, you get service or you get support. But over a number of years, we've really evolved to everything as a service. So you ask someone today, a younger person today, ask my kids about a service, they think of a subscription, right? Everything is a service. And instead of buying a product and getting support, you use the service on demand as you need it. And so the truth is today the concept of a service really incorporates both. You not only get products and the support of those products, but you also get the ongoing use of the service, particularly technology-based services. So we really haven't moved from products to services. We've really incorporated both, and it's additive.
Fantastic, John. Thanks. I think that makes a lot of sense. Jan, you've have some thoughts, I think, on what a service actually is, right?
Absolutely. I've written some books about that. As John said, this is typically a matter of evolution. If we put this in a historical perspective, we see a focus that comes from a focus on goods to something that is focused on continuously servicing the business of a customer. So the factor time has actually entered into the concept. It used to be single transactions, and now it is the continuous use of something that is of value to you. And that's what a service is. So it's a thing that is made available on a continuous basis. And your company, your business has become dependent upon that. Everything is scattered. Everyone is dependent upon others, many, many others. So services is now the core of our modern economy. So it's actually a shift in historical perspective from a single transaction focused on goods to a continuous delivery of something that has a significant business impact. But the service has become the product of our producing economy. And if you put that in a maturity perspective, as the image here shows, you see that in the past, we tended to focus on the lower levels. We tended to focus on the goods, the technology stuff, and the small systems that compose all kinds of technology. We transfer that, we sell that, and as John said, after the sale, we had some maintenance going on, and we tended to use that word service for after-sales maintenance. Nowadays, we shifted in the 90s to the level 3. At least most companies in the world try to do so, not all that successful, but we try to make something continuously available in terms of a service. And that is level 3. But if you focus on customer interest and value creation, you must focus on this from a customer perspective. So a service nowadays in USM terms has turned into something like creating a continuous value for the customer's business. That is levels 4 and 5. And they can only exist if you are in control of level 3, 2, and 1. So this is typically an example of evolution.
Excellent. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I agree with you on the evolution. But I also agree with you that I think many businesses are struggling to get past level 3.
Oh, absolutely.
In fact, even
be
level
honest,
2 in some cases.
I've actually never seen any company making level 4 through. They all claim to be customer-centric and customer-driven, but they never provide really customer-driven services. They talk about it. Often they are customer-friendly, but that's a different thing. It's not customer-driven. So we're still struggling. Most companies that I run into are struggling between levels 2 and 3.
Yeah, you don't get to skip levels.
No, absolutely not. You can't skip any level.
No, that's very true. You can't jump from level 2 to level 4. It doesn't happen that way.
No,
You're absolutely right. And I think we see that in various industries, right? We see that some industries are probably a little bit more mature in terms of what their service definitions and the way that they're offering. But I agree with you. Most are still not very customer-centric. They talk a big game, but it isn't in reality there yet.
Yeah, so, if you look at service agreements, service level agreements, as they are often called, you look at the content, it's most of the time, it's technology and systems that dominate the text components of a service agreement.
That is so true. It's like we guarantee 99.75% uptime of our server. We don't care. Okay? What we want to know is the service actually going to run 24/7, and how are you going to make sure that happens, right? So very, very good points. Thanks, guys. Let's move on to our next question. I see we're already getting some live questions in, which is great. So anybody in the audience, don't forget, put your live questions in, and we'll get them over to the panel just now.
And we already have a question. What's the difference between service and support?
And we'll get
going
to
to
that.
come
most
back
certainly.
on that later on. Yeah,
We will. We'll
we will
definitely come
explain.
on to that, Don.
We
Don't
will
worry.
explain.
Your
Yeah.
question is noted, and I promise you we will be talking about it. All right. So the next question we have is, why is it so important, and I guess also so hard, to find out what a service actually is? Yeah. And this is really an interesting one. So Peter, I'm going to kick off with you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead. And first of all, I think it requires quite some effort within an organization to understand what they offer to their client is in the end a service. And I trained, for example, the NATO organization close by my office here, and first they thought we don't have a customer, and it's the same for a court of justice or the police or a governmental organization. First, you need to have the understanding of your client, and then what you offer to them is the service. And if we compare it, for example, deeper in the organization, between departments, is also a service. What you get from your supplier, for example, if you are facility management, running building functionality, things like that, and you order furniture from a supplier, what they offer is a service as well. And maybe a nice example, a client organization in the Netherlands learned USM in the hard way. They were suffering in a packed office, new tables, chairs, everything was stored in the corridors, even in the coffee corner. Why? The new furniture was delivered before they moved to the new building. So first of all, the definition of what a service is important, including the specifications. But on top of that, also what you have agreed to deliver. And sometimes it helps also to use the reverse approach, like what you don't want. And that brings us later on maybe also to the second part, if they are too early, that you can call them, and that's the support part. But Mikko, maybe you can help me out with a challenge that pops in here.
Good thing to do that, Mikko. Off you go.
Yeah, thanks, Nigel and Peter. Yeah, so the challenge being like it's easy to say that something is a service without knowing what is the composition. Yeah. So good example is if you go into your customer in your own organization, or if you're a consultant or advisory position, go into your customer's organization, look for intranet, do a search for what is the definition of service. You won't find it. 99.99% of the time, you won't find it. Definition of the term service. If you look at the website or sales materials, it's all about sales. Sales is sales of the services. It's all about services. Yeah, we are a services organization. We provide high-end, robust services for whatever industry we are doing, without the definition of the term service. Then you're going to end up doing whatever services, whatever service management. How can you manage something that you cannot define? And so it's the composition that is why it's so crucial to have a common and universal definition that is known by each stakeholder, each role in a company. What is the definition? This is the definition of the term service, because we are a service organization. And it cannot change. So if you take just the term service, and then you add something to it, for example, service portfolio, service catalog, service management, the definition does not change, still the same. And USM gives us a beautiful definition, very actionable. It's deceivingly simple, and that it's a learning curve to think about it from that perspective, from customer's perspective, from the value and the composition that USM gives us for the term. That is why it's important. And if you look at what Peter mentioned about, for example, public sector, in Finland, where I'm from, yes, there's these public services. So, for example, in healthcare, so we have public healthcare services. Okay, I go to see doctor. Yeah, is that a service? Yeah, probably. And then it's okay when you buy it from the private sector. Is it the same service or different? Well, it depends how you define. Oh, yeah, it's crucial.
Yeah, I like that, Mikko. And I think that there is another element to this. If you can't define the service, how on earth are you going to measure it? Right? It's impossible. Yeah. So very good point. By the way, everybody, you've seen the QR code on screen there. If you want to take a look at that, that'll give you hundreds of service definitions. Some of them are quite fantastical, but I'll show the QR code again a little bit later. John, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think as we move to an enterprise service environment where everyone's a service provider, services need to have a logical, repeatable definition, number one. Everyone should be able to specify their services in a consistent way. I think that's really important. And I think they should be specified in a universal format and be agreed between all the providers inside and outside the enterprise in order to be able to talk along a service supply chain. So the bottom line, the definition of a service needs to be simple. It needs to be unambiguous. So everyone within the service system, within and outside the enterprise, can understand and use it. And so that's really key to defining a service. And USM does that, I think, exceptionally well.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Jan, you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, the funny thing is we all talk about service. But I would really invite the audience who's watching this webinar to go to all the other teams in the organization and ask these teams, make a list of who's your customer, who's your supplier, and what do you provide to the enterprise proposition. And I guarantee you that most of the time you will simply get silence. They can't provide the answer. That is something I really can't believe it. That's hard for me to understand how that is possible.
Yeah, and that's been true for 20 or 30 years too.
Yeah. Universal problem.
You're not only has it been true for 20 or 30 years in the past, I think it could be true for another 20 or 30 years if people don't start looking at the USM methodology and taking a look at implementing this properly.
Yeah.
Very good question. Very good points, everybody. Thanks. So I think let's move on to our next question. We have quite a lot of questions stacking up already. So our next question for today is, how does USM actually define a service then? This is a really interesting question. So Esther, I'm going to come to you first, if you don't mind, and give you a little bit of a hint on graphic here. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the big picture. You see need, demand, routines, service, value. And for now, I'm going to elaborate on the part of value, and my highly valued colleagues will elaborate on the rest of the picture. And I will do also. But service always needs to create value based on customer view on their demand and their need. And as already stated, service is just delivering something to someone else that creates value to you as a user, to your business. And this something, we in USM call it a facility that needs to be supported. Needs to be co-created, or even, like Mikko said before the session, co-invented, reinvented. And it needs to be aligned with need. So you do have an agreed upon definition of what your services consist of. Already said, and everyone needs to know what to deliver in the whole chain of service delivery, not only to your end client, to your customer, but everybody in the team next to you that also is part of that chain. And you need to know what can be expected, and you need also to be clear about what you don't deliver. So here's a question for you, dear audience. Do you recognize what happens if services and expected value are not clear? You get sky-high expectations, you get misunderstanding, you get disappointment, and then shit happens. And you think everyone has a mutually clear picture of the service you deliver, but in daily practice, we all wear blurry glasses. I thought that you would, yeah, but I expected you to. And those vague expectations lead to bad experience. And that's the last thing we want. We want to paint a clear and a simple picture. And the experienced quality, so value, depends on delivering as agreed upon. And like John said, it's not just John who said it, but be specific, operable, and measurable. it's nothing new, but it is oh so difficult. And if you achieve that, customers can use our services as intended. That for me, that is what's talking about value to deliver.
I agree with you, Esther. That makes so much sense. Okay, it really does. John, you've got some thoughts on this as well. Why don't you chip in?
Well, I think Esther really nailed it. If you can't keep everyone on the same page, managing services is going to be difficult at best. So that's really important. But I think once you understand the concept of a service and how it's evolved over many years, for me, it was easier to understand USM's definition of a service. The facility is the thing that's made available to the customer. And that's what creates value. That's what the customer really is focused on. So that's that facility. It refers to what the service does or allows the customer to do or the user to do. The support is just what the customer or user can expect from the provider when they're using the facility, right? The overall customer experience depends on both, and it depends on both over time. So a good service will integrate both the facility and support over a period of time, right? And that's critical in what we call the VUCA world today: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So the USM definition for me is really unambiguous. It allows you to not only define it, but specify it consistently across the enterprise, which I find absolutely fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. Peter, you'd like to add something? Right, right. Absolutely. Great point. Jan, why don't you finish us off on this?
I think what they said.
They said.
This is typically a universal definition. I cannot find any line of service business that can't express its service as a supported facility. It is a universal definition. So that means that it's the base for gluing everything together. If you can express the concept of service in one unified definition, you make that the agreed definition between teams within an enterprise, you can finally start talking about the same thing and gluing it together or decomposing services or whatever. And the support component focuses on the continuity of the thing that's made available. So this is something that fulfills the dependency relationship. And I don't think that we can simply survive an economy without the guaranteed continuous availability of the things one party provides to the other. We would simply collapse.
You're right. You're absolutely right there. Thanks, team. That was really, really good. And apologies to our viewers if you couldn't hear Peter's answer there. We will. I have had a look at it and solved it. There's nothing on your end, Peter. Don't worry.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that we can move on because I can see that the questions are stacking up like crazy. We've got about 8 or 9 live questions already. So we're going to try and get through as many of these
Speed
questions
up.
as we can.
Yeah.
Speed up.
So our audience has taken us to heart and has definitely given us lots and lots and lots of live questions to answer just now. All right, before we do that, let's get through some of these. So how does USM actually specify a service? And Jan, I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind, while we take a look at the facility diagram.
Yeah. I think the term facility, people always ask me, how did you come up with the term facility? Well, the explanation is that we went back to the original meaning of the word of something that is supporting someone else or something else. And that is the ancient Greek word facilitate. And facilitate says make easier. So the thing that is provided by a provider to a customer is something that makes the life of the business of the customer easier or better in a sustainable way. So that's why we chose the word facility, although any word we would have chosen would have created lots of questions and critiques. I think this is the ideal word because it actually says exactly what it does. It facilitates the one who receives it. And that's why we selected the term facility. And of course, the support then comes to it.
It facilitates delivering value. Yeah.
It facilitates indeed the delivery of something that is of value to the customer.
Yeah.
Right.
Facilitate. That's where we went back to.
Makes perfect sense to me. Mikko, you had something to add to this as well, I think.
Yeah, I'm always tempted to say after when I speak after Jan is that what he said, and I'm going to do it again, what he said, and I'm going to add to it. I have a nice story. I gave a presentation in Finnish in my home country, the first USM presentation in a webinar, and trying to find the translation for the term facility in Finnish. And it's easy. It's in a vocabulary. It's faciliteetti. That's nice. Yeah, sounds nice. And I use that one. And after the webinar presentation, we got some verbal feedback and very nice and nice views and everything, except the term facility also means toilets in Finnish. Faciliteetti means toilet.
Facility, yeah.
Oh,
Relieve. Yeah. Relieve yourself.
So, but we got a nice story. So yeah, we can have toilets as a service. Yeah.
Yep.
If you have this rock concert or festival, then you have portable toilets, and yeah, it's the facility and it's also the support. So if the youth go out and turn them around, and then somebody will turn them up and clean up, and yeah, that's the support for that facility. And also, hopefully, there is enough capacity and there's continuity. If they fill up, they're going to bring in another one, and then you have a nice story. But yeah, that's how you define it. So, and how you have the definition of a supported facility, then you specify the goods and actions with the facility. Then you specify the level of support, the different things you can get the support with, and take it from there. But yeah, toilets.
Fantastic.
I just see in the comments someone from Sweden responding that a service is like cups and plates, which is also in Dutch. So defining what you mean with your wording is so important with unified service management. Yeah. Thanks for the comment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. Precision is everything in this, right?
Yeah.
Precision is everything. Okay. If you don't define it properly, it's going to be a complete and utter mess. So very, very good points, everybody. Okay. And thanks, Mikko, for that interesting example. Okay. That was a good one. Okay. Let's move on briefly. I think we have another question here, which is, how do you document your services? And Esther, I'm going to kick off with you, if you don't mind.
Me as a documenter.
Yeah.
I'm going to repeat a lot of things, but repetition is key to understanding and grasping the concept. So servers should be handled as a structured system. Services live in structured systems. So you need to decompose them into essential components you can deliver, like a server's breakdown structure. And in my organization, we work with USM service trees, and they lead to service descriptions that specify service in more detail, and not only from a customer perspective is essential, but also from internal perspective. And internal building blocks are mostly not of interest to the customer. But let me use the analogy of a restaurant. I'm a customer. I come in, I want a clear and lovely menu, and I want a great meal in a good restaurant with nice service for a good price. And then I have an excellent experience. And most of the time, the customer, don't want to know about things like kitchen routines and recipes or your pricing model that you need internally to provide the experience I want. But your owner, your chef, your staff needs to know. They need it to deliver the needed value. So in my organization, back to my organization, we document our services from both perspectives, customer perspective and internal organization. So service trees, service descriptions, and they form the base for a service catalog and service agreements for your customer, and request catalog, self-service portal for the users. And then you can form your workflows and incorporate them into your service management tooling. So service breakdown, trees, descriptions, service catalog, service agreements, request catalog, workflows, routines. That is what you document. And why do you want to do that? To be clear, to be repeatable, specific, measurable, and to be improvable. Well, that is the service excellence we're aiming for. Isn't that our shared goal? Question mark, exclamation mark.
It is. It definitely is. Thank you so much, Esther. That was a very, very clear and concise answer, and very accurate as well. John, you had some comments as well on this one, I believe.
Yeah, I think, there are a lot of different artifacts we can use when we define and specify services. But, for customers, we document the catalog, and we do service agreements. For users, we'll document a request catalog. And for providers, we may have a technical catalog and OLAs and underpinning agreements with suppliers. But what's interesting and I think important is the USM method gives you a consistent definition and specification. It's the same for all of those different artifacts and agreements.
Yep.
And that is one of the things I like. And the other thing I like is that the USM service agreements, which are consistent across all of those different personas, they link to the non-redundant USM process model. And I think we've got a future session on that, so I won't get into that here. But,
teaser.
Yeah, that's a really important concept that people need to understand. The USM definition and USM agreement link to the system, and it's something I like.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Jan, you have some comments on this as well, I believe.
If you ask yourself how to document your services, it immediately reveals your position on the maturity model. Because if you are living in the lower levels, where technology-driven and system-driven is making your business, then you will specify your services and your service agreements in terms of technology and systems. And on the other side, if you are living on levels 4 and 5 of the maturity model, you will express your service and document them in terms of the business effects of what you are doing for the customer. That is something that you can really find very, very, very hard in practice.
Yeah. Very good point. Definitely.
Yeah.
Peter, your thoughts?
Yeah, what I want to add is understanding what your customer really wants takes time. Also for the customer themselves, it's sometimes not so easy to say exactly what they need. And so documenting the service and also the service agreement is really a journey. And so do not wait for the perfect document. I've seen a customer postponing the signing session because they were not feeling ready for it. But go for version 1.0, accept the fact that you have misunderstood later on, and it might be a bit painful and frustrating, but then later you are evolving and start to understand each other much better, and then you just update the document.
Continuous improvement. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Correct. Continuous improvement, but also agility. You need to use the agile approach here.
Yeah.
That really does help. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mikko, you have some thoughts on this as well, quickly?
Yeah, actually, just a quick on the maturity level. So if it's a customer value maturity model, so the lower level is not bad. So we need to manage technology, we need to manage systems, we need to then move forward with managing the services and become more. You cannot skip steps. And first you document the technology, you document the relations between systems. All of us, there's an evolution towards documenting your services. And it's a good question to ask, how do you document them? I just actually spent a few hours today discussing about should we put them in a Confluence or in a Teams or SharePoint folder or wherever. And they can be in multiple places, but as long as you follow the logic, you define them clearly, and then you follow the logic, the actual tool in which you describe them, or the artifacts you use in a practical level, as long as they have the information needed as defined by the definition itself. So yeah, just my
Perfect.
2 cents.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Thank you, guys. I'm going to move on to the next question rapidly because we had a lot of live questions to get through just now. Okay, next question is, how do processes relate to services? And Jan, I'm going to kick off with you with this one, if you don't mind.
This is typically a terminology terror question, because lots of people, they mix up the concept of process with the concept of service. They say that processes are services, which of course in USM terminology is nonsense. The processes are in USM the sequences of the activities that are executed by the provider to deliver the service. So if you look at this image, you see that the customer only gets value through the availability of the continuous availability of something that is of value to him, the facility. And that facility is going to change every time. Sometimes they want to upgrade it, they want to end it or renew it or whatever, so they need a new agreement. Sometimes within the agreement, they need to update smaller aspects of it. They get a new version that requires a change. Sometimes the thing breaks down. It must be recovered. Sometimes they want something additional to that, or just want a report or an information question. So they ask a service request, and some operation activity will be added to that. So the concept of processes is something that supports the execution of the support components of what we call the service as a whole, as a system.
Makes perfect sense to me, Jan. In fact, I couldn't think of a better way to describe that.
Yeah.
So, I'm just going with what Mikko said, what he said, right? So, Esther, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, and then I'm going to answer the question why customers and users mostly are not interested in the details of the provider's processes.
Yeah.
And processes is a whole new topic. So follow us on LinkedIn, APMG or USM. You can follow workshop or training, because the topic of processes is complicated and not. But I'm just going to answer the question, what to do with your users, because I used the analogy of a restaurant and had routines and recipes and pricing model, and most users couldn't care less how you resolve that internally as a service provider. And you need your processes, like Jan said, to support everything you do. So for a user, choosing the right trigger, in USM, it can be a wish or a service request or a request for change or an incident. It's an internal issue, and do not bother your users with that decision. As a good service provider, you offer them a generic self-service portal request, and then you internally categorize and differentiate between the request types and guide it towards the right workflow in your tooling. Customers, other than users, have a different role. They are contractors, so you send service reports based on service agreements, and in your reporting you need to address and reflect different types of requests that are submitted. But as providers, we need processes to create routines for delivery, and they form the back end. They have got your back, and so lots more to say about that topic.
Fantastic. John, why don't you finish us off on this, if you don't mind?
Well, I guess, again, I'm going to go back to the service agreement links to the process model. And what's nice about that is you can have in your service agreement a reference to your request catalog. So if you have a specific service, there may be change models or incident models or requests that are tailored to that service. And your service agreement can define that. It's a byproduct of using the method, which I think is really, really nice. And it just simplifies things. So I don't know, that's the comment that I would make. And I think people miss that, when they look at USM, they're kind of going quick and they don't really get into the details. That's why we have workshops and everything. So I would encourage people to, if they're really interested, take a workshop, go into work, sit in a workshop.
This is just a sneak peek into processes and triggers. Yeah.
And I agree with you there. And I think not only take a workshop, but go and do some training. Yeah? The accredited training really will teach you so much. Start with the USM Wiki. There is so much information on the USM Wiki as well. You can just start reading there and you'll get a very, very good idea about how things fit together before you take your training. But it will make an enormous difference for you if you do the training. All right, let's do another question here, which is, what is the difference between a product and a service? And I'm going to start off with Jan, if you don't mind, Jan.
This again is something of semantics. This is a typically terminology terror issue. The word products was used in history, of course, for the things you delivered to your customer. So the car was sold and that was the product. Nowadays, we don't focus on the product component anymore in terms of the goods that were meant in the 1980s. We focus on the whole concept of a service, which is a supported facility. And the facility can also cover actions instead of goods. So the products of a service provider nowadays is the service. So when we use the word product for only the goods component of a facility, we have an insufficient definition of the word product. So please stop using the word product at all. And if you use the phrase products and services, I think you only emphasize that half of your head is still in the 1980s.
That's why a lease car is so popular here in Belgium. Yeah.
Only in Belgium. Yeah.
In Belgium, definitely. Okay.
No.
Jan, thank you so much. Peter, your thoughts?
And no, I'm just saying that's why a lease car is so popular here in Belgium. People don't want to have all the hassle of the product, and they would like to have all the support, including, and even some lease companies provide you an electric bike to do the small distances, which is also cheaper for them because you're not using the car for the most intensive kilometers, and with safe miles at the end. So I think it's better to move away from product and start to think in services.
Everything is a service. Software service means you don't just get the product, you get the whole service.
Yeah, you get the whole service, not just a product. Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced about the e-bike scenario, especially in the rain and snow. But okay, I guess from a cost perspective, it makes sense. But and I get you. It is a whole definition of a service, right? How are you doing that? Miko,
it becomes a mobility service.
Mobility service.
So just a quick one. I could give the consulting answer. Well, it depends on the definition of a product. We have already defined the term service, but then we would need to define the term product. If the product, in the sense that Jan mentioned before, as something, it's but it used to be like a car. Or then if you look at for example, the agile way of developing software products, then that way the agile definition would fit in the goods and actions, which are part of the umbrella of a service or the facility component of the service. Well, it depends. Here you can actually use it. But if it's in a classical term, as Jan mentioned before, that is the end product of the service providers is always service. And if it's like a software product, then it's in their goods actions continuity line. It's somewhere in between there.
Somewhere in there, exactly. Makes sense to me. Right, everybody, we have a lot of live questions that we need to answer. So
Nice.
I'm going to start off with this live question. It's going to say, what is the difference, thanks Don for this, between service and support? So who would like to answer this one from the panel? Hands up, anybody wants to answer. Okay, I'm going to kick off with Jan.
I think everyone already explained this. A service is defined as a supported facility. So support is a component of the service. It's covered by the concept of service. So there's no difference. The one is included in the other.
One is included in the other one, agreed. And I think that we can leave that there.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think this next question I'm going to take from Marcel, we have kind of covered a little bit of this. What is the current understanding of product and service? Okay. In my understanding, level 1 and 2 is more product management. Now, level 1 and 2, I'm just going to very briefly show this in the maturity, because this is what we're talking about here. Okay. This levels 1 and 2 in this maturity model are around operational technology driven, systems driven, around operational excellence. Okay. Just to remind our audience, level 1 and 2. Okay. So who would like to provide another answer on that? If there is an answer on that to be provided. Okay, so John and then Peter.
Well, I'll take a stab at it. It goes back to how you define product. You know, if you define product as a good, you know, then maybe yes. But that's the thing that came. How do you define product? That's really what came to my mind.
Yeah, how would you define product exactly? Peter, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's also a maturity issue. If you only think that you're delivering a product and at the moment it's not there and the phone starts to ring through your supporting services, then you realize that you need to do something in addition to guarantee that the product is not available. And then you see that you start to move to a facility that needs to be up and running for a certain time, and then you move from product to service thinking, which is also increasing the maturity in the maturity model. So I like the question, and it really iterates on the steps that you need to make altogether to move away from product into service thinking.
Yep, agree with you there. I completely agree with you. I think that makes perfect sense. Thanks, Peter.
As a provider, can you provide any product that you don't support?
True. How would you?
Yeah.
You know, exactly. You're not going to be providing it properly, that's for sure. Okay, so another live question from a viewer here. Thanks. I think this is a good question. What are the concrete drivers customers confront service providers with that are consistently measurable, comparable, if you want to put it that way, over longer periods with value expressing metrics? Now, it's a fairly complex question in that sense, but my understanding of this question really is around those drivers that are a customer is coming to you as a service provider with. Okay? So how would you measure their service and over what period of time? Jan.
This is a maturity determined question. You will have 5 different answers for each of the levels of the maturity model. If your service is expressed in terms of just technology stuff, then anything the customer wants is technology stuff. They want to have the cheapest laptop or whatever. If the provider would offer business value, they wouldn't do any business with this customer on level 1 because they are level 5. And the other way around, if the provider provides cheap laptops and the customer wants business effects, they wouldn't talk to each other. So this is an answer that should be answered at each of the levels of the maturity model. And I think that takes too much time for now, but I'm glad to answer this in if I get the email address of the one who asked this, he'll get an answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
absolutely.
We can create a whole new topic around this question. So thanks. That's a very good question.
Yeah,
it is, absolutely. And maybe this will be another topic for another show, because I think that metrics and so on are actually a very, very important part of this whole equation. But definitely, we will get back to you with a much more comprehensive answers. I think we could probably all talk for about an hour.
Maybe one additional comment, because metrics themselves are not part of USM. USM is only the methodical approach. The metrics that you might use are expressed extensively in best practice frameworks like ITIL, COBIT, or whatever you want to choose. That you find all kinds of examples of metrics that can be used. I've written books about that, so just read the books and you get ideas. USM only says that you should agree on metrics, which that's entirely up to you. That's how methods are separate from practice.
Good point.
Very good point, Jan, and I'm glad you raised that. Thank you. Okay, let's take our next question. And the next question is, what are some effective steps to raise that maturity level and become customer focused? So do you do this bottom up or top down? Mikko, let's start with you if you don't mind.
Yeah, so where we start raising the maturity level and trying to understand what is the current maturity level. Well, we have already discussed it to an extent, but always start with am I a service provider or am I a customer? Or am I, at this moment, am I performing in a service provider role? If I am acting as a service provider, who is the customer? And or if I'm acting as a customer role, who is the service provider? Start from there, because it's all about the interaction between service provider and customer. Then take it into the, have I defined the services? If not, you know quite well, okay, and looking back into maturity model, you probably fit in somewhere globally, somewhere in between 1 and 3, most probably. So it could be closer to 2, and you already define the systems, maybe you have defined services. And then you know, okay, so this is where I am and this is where I want to be, maybe hopefully in level 4. But if you cannot tell who is the customer, and what we discussed earlier, I think it was Jan who mentioned that, okay, if you go around in the organization, so what are you providing for your customer? Who are your customers? And what is your team providing to the team's customer? If you cannot find the answer, you bet you are in level 2 or 1.
Absolutely. You can bet on it. Jan, your thoughts?
The funny thing is that this question will probably be receiving a better answer from the work floor than from C-level guys. Because at C-level, they often have no clue what this is all about. And at the bottom of the organization, the workflow, where things happen, where the relationship with the customer and the user is intense, they understand the concept of continuous availability of a facility and the support that is required to be there as well. So this is something that should be answered by someone lower in the organization. And therefore, in my experience, it almost always goes bottom up.
Yeah.
Start low in the organization because of let's say, the ignorance at C-level. They are not aware of problems like this. They talk about it, but they have no vision.
Good point, Jan. Thank you. Esther, finish us off with this
one. One small addition, to be customer facing, you need to know your services. Level 3, we talked about that. Know your services. And like Jan said, that almost always starts bottom up. People want to know what they need to deliver. But if you don't have C-level commitment, then you're going to face that you're not able to make capacity claims, because it's a lot of work to document your services, to document what to agree upon. Documenting it takes a lot of time, and it takes commitment from C-level for capacity claim.
Yeah. It absolutely does. It does take commitment from C-level. And I think that there's one thing that I'd like to add to this for myself is one effective step that you can take straight away is to start understanding the USM method. And yeah, to understand the USM method.
like he said, yeah. Like Nigel said, yeah.
Start with having a look at the USM wiki, but really we urge you to go and take a look at getting some accredited training, because there are a lot of folks offering USM training now, and it really will help you to understand it. Now, there is, unfortunately, we have run out of time largely for live questions, but there is a comment in the chat that I'd like to just touch on here. And that comment, I can't display it at the moment, but separating method from framework, okay, is too abstract for the common IT manager. I'm wondering how to sell the USM concept to customers. So that is an interesting point.
Yeah,
and Mikko, you are doing this on a regular basis, as are Esther, Jan, John, and Peter.
Yeah.
Mikko, maybe you've got a few comments on this before we go into our closing for the show.
Yeah, just a quick one. It's a method. It's an additional tool we have in under our belts to do any practice standard of thing we have. It's a way of thinking, and so it becomes a very solid and concrete tool in any manager's IT manager's tool belt. Once you understand it, there is a learning curve. There is rethinking involved, but it becomes very concrete because with it's not just a thinking exercise. It's all that, okay, this is the theory and this is how you can apply these tools developed by the community. So in practice, in real life, to support any practices, implementation or usage you have, be it like ITIL, COBIT, IT for IT, TOGAF, whatever you have.
Yeah. Lots of them, including things like FitSM can be used in various places. So there are lots of frameworks. So, yeah. Jan, your thoughts?
Well, to close it, it is much simpler than you think. And if you start using USM, you will find out that it covers the core of what all the frameworks are talking about. And in practice, I experienced that when our organization starts using USM, they, at the beginning, hardly look at frameworks anymore because they have much to do to improve the way they work, they organize their work. And everything that is in the frameworks is basically covered. And as soon as you need more details, you go to the frameworks and get it from there. And that's actually what happens.
Agreed. Fantastic, guys. Absolutely fantastic. So I think, to be perfectly honest, we could have done another hour on this show alone, right?
And we are going to do another hour.
To be continued.
We will. We will be back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we absolutely will. We could easily do that. So I just wanted to take a couple of moments, if you guys don't mind, to just give a few closing remarks before we end today's session. So I'm going to walk around the panels. Jan, what are your closing comments for today?
I think the core message of today is that if you don't understand the concept of service and you don't agree on that in the service ecosystem that you are working in, then you could just find another job.
Yeah, good point. You could. Mikko, your final closing comments.
Yeah, I just want to say what Jan said.
Thank you, Mikko.
Famous last words. Yeah.
Nice.
What Jan said. Thank you, Mikko. Yeah. Esther, your closing remarks, please.
Just be curious. Consider this session just to be a sneak peek, a preview, a teaser. Be curious. Ask us. Follow us. Ask us on LinkedIn. And there's lots and lots and lots of information to share with you. USM is a community and we share everything we have with you. Dare to ask. We are here and we will be here, and see you next time.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Esther. John, your final marks.
Well, again, I'd echo everyone else. Take the time to understand USM, how the pieces fit and how it works as a system. As a management system. Don't just read it, and understand how the pieces fit is what I would say.
Good advice. Peter, your closing remarks.
Well, just to say it in one sentence, it's amazing how simple in the end it is if you understand that you can do anything in your organization with 5 processes and 8 workflows. So really step into, explore and enjoy how nice it is to work in a unified service management way.
Fantastic. And I just think this is a topic which has proven to be enormously popular. We've had so many live questions in today's show. No way we could get to them all, but we will get to them all. Yeah, just not live. So you will get an answer. Everybody who's posted a question in the chat, you will all get your answers for your questions. Do not fear. Look out on LinkedIn and on your email, because those questions will be answered over the coming weeks. Yeah, don't worry. And we have got another show coming up, so don't worry about that. There will be a few more of us talking about these topics in the coming weeks as well. All right, I just wanted to say thanks to our panel and really appreciate your input today and your expert advice. Really, really helpful for the viewers. Now, just looking forward, over on our website, you can search for the answers to over 3,000 questions now. It's a free resource connecting you with experts from all around the world. Don't forget, you can also listen to the audio versions of our shows on your preferred podcast platform. Now, just looking ahead, this coming Monday, the 26th, and Friday, the 30th, we're doing a 2-part webinar on design thinking, DT Method. If you register for both events and attend them, you could win a free course and exam. So just have a look at that one. Wednesday, the 28th, we're running a webinar on women in IT, becoming an agile expert. So also lots of prizes in there. On the 17th of September, our next USM event takes place, and we are exploring architecture and system in that one. So look out on our website for more information on that one. Thanks, everybody, and we will see you on the next event. Bye now.